What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the new year once again. If you haven't seen my first video about the iPhone 6, that's okay. Some of you guys aren't iPhone fans, so I figured I would not only do iPhone videos in the beginning of the year, the still worth it ones, but also do Android ones as well. And the Galaxy Note 3 was one of the most popular still worth it's I did it last year. So I figured I would redo it, kind of update a couple things here and there. Now, surprisingly, with the Galaxy Note 3, not a lot has changed surprisingly, which is honestly kind of makes sense because this phone is pretty old and this phone stopped getting updates forever ago. But recently we had a new Android version come out, and we've also seen the Galaxy Note 9 come out as well since last year of me doing this video. So let's go ahead and see how the Galaxy Note 3 will pretty much hold you up throughout the remainder of 2019 up until I do probably a late 2019 revisited video. But starting off, the Galaxy Note 3 came out in 2013, and I'll tell you at that time, me personally, dude, I was looking at this phone, I'm like, man, because I was looking at all these commercials and stuff, and I was like, man, dude, this phone is crazy. Like, I've never seen a phone like that. Obviously the Note 2 was existing already and the Note 1, but with the Note 3 it just looks so much better than all the other phones that I even saw at the time. And it was huge, it was massive, it had the S Pen, there were so many things going for it, and it was like love at first sight. And one of my best friends actually at the time, he owned the Galaxy Note 3, and I was so jealous because I had the Huawei phone. If you see my video of the first Android phone I ever had, I had that one and that phone sucked. And my friend had the Galaxy Note 3, that thing was crazy. And I'll be honest, looking at it now, it doesn't even feel extremely cheap. Like, there's a lot of phones that even came out in even 2015 that feel cheaper than what this phone feels like. And I'll tell you, it doesn't feel premium anymore. It has a 5.7-inch screen, which is pretty nice. It's 1080p, it's Super AMOLED. I like it. It's decent. It has a pretty low PPI though, but it's good enough, I'll say. The home button is also in the front, but there's no fingerprint, sensor. We have all these new phones out with fingerprint sensors on the back, and we have iPhones with Touch ID, but we've came to a place now where most likely we're going to be going to the face detection realm. We have the iPhone XS's and all these other phones. Now, I do think fingerprint sensors are always going to be there as a secondary option, but for a majority, we're probably going to stick with face detection. But this is a phone that had neither of those, so there was a time where we didn't have any of those things. And one thing that this phone actually has that a lot of other phones did not have even now is the removable back with the removable battery and expandable storage. So luckily this is one of those phones that kept those two, and this is why I think this phone is still brought up kind of to this day. It's because if you have a bad battery in your phone or you have something like that, you can easily replace it without having to take apart the whole entire phone. And on top of that, with the expandable storage, you can go and get the 32 gig variant or the 16 gig variant and be able to just go on your jolly way and just put more storage on it. And I think that's why a lot of people still go with this phone or even the Note 4, is just because of that. But there's one more reason too, which I'll bring up in a second. But we have two cameras on this. Now we're having a trend where there's dual camera sensors. There's one camera on the back. It's a 13 megapixel sensor, and it's actually not that bad. But we also have a 2 megapixel front facing camera. The cool thing is though, is that with this camera, with the back camera especially, there's so much software in this phone that makes this camera just have so much power. And in my opinion, I'll turn it on. We do have Android 5.0, which is the latest version this phone got. It's very outdated, but I'll be honest, man, it kind of runs well on it. It's not that bad. It's not as bad as you would think. I guess the features with Android 5.0 aren't extremely outdated, but there has been a lot of improvement, especially with Android Pie. I've been able to, I think my OnePlus 6 had Android Pie. A lot of phones that I've been testing recently have Android Pie, and it's very, very good. I like it a lot, but there's a lot of resemblance between Android 5.0 and Android 9.0, believe it or not. I think Android 5.0 was a pretty big update coming from Android 4.4 KitKat. So if you're thinking about it now, if you have Android 5.0 device, in terms of features, obviously you're lacking a lot, but I think the biggest thing is security. And this is why I think rooting and ROMing your phone is super, super important and is a viable option, especially when you have a phone like this. Now I'm not going to say you'll have a better phone or whatever, but I will say is that you will be able to get more features and more security from a custom ROM. And I always tell people to do this, especially on older phones. If you have a phone now like a Note 8 or like a Galaxy S7 or something, there's really no point. I mean, you could probably wait a couple years to do it, but for a Galaxy Note 3 it only makes sense to, because you are so outdated. You'd probably be doing yourself a favor. I think there's an Android 8.0 ROM for it. There's probably even an Android 9 ROM for it. I don't know, but the fact of the matter is there's at least the Android Nougat ROM, and you should definitely go. I would push you to go and actually update your phone and custom ROM it and do it that way. There's tons of tutorials online. If you plan on getting this phone at all, I would highly recommend it. Now, in terms of performance, I was on the stock ROM, but if you do get a custom ROM, sometimes you can mess with it a little bit, the custom kernels and stuff. I'll say the performance is not bad, okay? Obviously, it's not extremely good, but when you consider the age of it, I will definitely give it a pass a little bit. That's one thing I'm going to work on this year, is consider the age when I'm recommending phones and everything. Now, my version does have a quad-core processor, It has the Adreno 330 GPU and 3 gigs of RAM, which is pretty crazy. Okay, 3 gigs of RAM is a lot. The iPhone 10 has 3 gigs of RAM, and there's a lot of other Android phones being released now that still only have 3 gigs. Now, that's not a lot for Android devices, but in 2013, I'll definitely say I'll be the first one to admit that is a lot for a phone. Now, this phone, in terms of just regular usage, like my usage, if I took it on this phone, it's not that bad. Multitasking isn't horrible. Opening apps, all that stuff is okay. I think the issues are basically with the software, like I stated, this in terms of the performance, because it just seems like it takes like the same amount of time to do every single thing. So I know it doesn't really make much sense, but when you mess with an older phone, like basically how I'll sum up the overall performance of this is very, very mild. There's not a lot of like craziness going on here. I'll say like if your usage is very light, you might be satisfied. That's probably the best way I can do it. I've been trying to spend like 20 minutes trying to come up with a formulation of words with it, and I'll definitely say that with overall usage, it'll be okay. In terms of gaming though, same thing. It's really, to figure at the time this thing was the most like heaviest performing phone out there and all the games were basically made for this thing is pretty crazy, because I think the performance isn't really that good anymore, which is sad to say, but I'll definitely say that if your usage is very limited, you're not going to have a horrible time owning this phone. I'll definitely say that. But I do think like casual games and everything work fine, but it's when you get into the heavier game market that like real racing doesn't really perform that well. Nova's not going to perform that well. All those different games are not going to be that good when it comes to this phone, which is okay and expected because it's a 2013 phone. It came out like 6 years ago. Now moving on from that topic, I want to talk about battery life really quick. It's not horrible, okay? It's 100% not horrible. It's very average though, okay? Even though my personal phone had decent battery life, sometimes it really depends on which phone you have, because if your phone was used pretty heavily, that probably means that the battery has degraded a lot, and because of that, the battery you will get inside of that phone isn't the full, I think it was like 3,000 milliamp hours. It's not going to be that full size. Usually it's going to be degraded a couple thousand milliamp hours sometimes. But one crucial thing you have to remember about this phone is that it does have a removable back. So what that means is you can remove the back, you can remove the battery, you can put extra storage in or whatever. That's very, very important, because you can go and not only get the stock battery for it and just swap it out and then be like a full size again, you can go out and actually get a bigger sized battery, which is pretty important, because instead of having that 3,000 milliamp hours in it, you can go and put a 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, I think I've seen like 10,000 milliamp hours for this thing. I would really recommend that, man. If I had a phone like this that had a removable battery, I would 100% do that. That's the only thing that would make sense. You're getting more out of a phone that way. So I'll definitely recommend you. That's just the biggest plus for this phone, 100%. Now, it also has the S Pen as well. I wish more phones had this thing. I say it in every video. The S Pen allows you to do so much more functionality. You can go and like do notes, and even I'll be honest, even with the Galaxy Note 3, the S Pen still has a lot of functionality. I was surprised. Now, it's not as much as like the Galaxy Note 9 or Note 8 or even like the Galaxy Note 5, but it's still decent, and I would rather have an S Pen than not have an S Pen at all, if I'm being dead honest. Now, that's pretty much the whole entire synopsis of this phone. Like I said, not a lot has changed since last year and even the last couple of years, but if you're looking forward, one important thing to note is that these used prices for phones are always going lower and lower and lower, and a lot of the time, a lot of people kind of get sucked in. They see a Galaxy Note 3 for like $60, $70. They're like, oh my god, that's such a good deal, I have to buy it. But they don't know that that a lot of the newer flagships from like 2014, 2015, even 2016 are sometimes around that price point too, and are always a better deal than a 2013 flagship. So what I'll tell you is, to answer the question, is the Galaxy Note 3 still worth it? I'll definitely say that, like I always say, it's pretty old, okay? Not only even in software, but in hardware as well. But on top of that, I would just beg the question, why exactly do you want the Galaxy Note 3? If you're wondering, if you're just watching this video for the fun of it, go for it. But if you're actually considering this phone still, I would probably lure you away from that. It really make no sense to do that, because I would even recommend a Galaxy Note 4 more than this phone. That thing got a little bit more updates, and you're still retaining the battery and the removable storage. But honestly, I don't hate the Galaxy Note 3. I like the Galaxy Note 3 a lot. I think it's a really good phone. It's built fairly well for a 2013 flagship. But I just think that if you're spending that much money for a Galaxy Note 3, you might be better off spending like $30 more, $40 more for like even a Galaxy Note 4 or even a Galaxy Note 5. I've seen a lot of those go for around that $100 price tag. So the difference in phone you're going to get for spending like an extra $30, $40 is going to be astronomical in my opinion. So what I'll say is the Galaxy Note 3 is not a bad phone at all. I like it a lot. It's super important in the Android lineup of like history, but I probably would not recommend you guys buying it anymore. And that's going to be a pretty common theme with a lot of these still worth it videos that I'm going to do this year. At least I think, I don't know. But I think the Galaxy Note 3 makes a pretty decent backup phone if you need a phone for like a couple of days or like a week or a month. But for like more than like 2 or 3 months, I probably would not recommend it. But that's just my opinion, guys. If you want to pick up a Galaxy Note 5 or even a Galaxy Note 8 or 9, I'll leave links in the description for some. Please buy not only your phones, but everything from those links, because you can help out the channel, help me buy more phones and give away things and all these other things. So I really appreciate that. But hit that like button, that don't mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber we get really does count, so it'll mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I would really appreciate if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.